Last week, me and my significant other went on a hike at nighttime. It had been around 12 a.m. We went on this wooded path, and though it was eerie, we figured we would be fine as we had each other. We barely saw anyone until we start going up this path, see an individual further ahead of us with a flashlight on. They turned it on and then off a couple times. We continued walking up the hill, the person in front of us. Eventually, at some point, they went off path and we no longer saw them. We continued up the spot we were headed and stopped there. We sat and talked, made out for about an hour. Then, as we were making our way back to the secluded area's exit, we heard rustling in the bushes near us. We both looked over expecting to see an animal, till we realized the rustling was too loud and the shape in the bushes was too big. It was a fucking person. They rose their head up a bit and we caught a glimpse of a flashlight as they started to emerge out of the bush. I quickly realized whatever was happening was very off. Out of fear, I screamed and took off running. My significant other followed a bit behind. At first, I heard more than just a few footsteps, meaning he attempted to follow or chase us, potentially for a few seconds. We got away. I'm not sure when he got in the bush, if he was there before us, but that means he was sitting there for over an hour in silence by himself. I don't know what exactly that was or what he was doing, but I would hate to have found out what happened if we didn't run. I actually don't believe in ghosts and all that stuff. I never doubted the fact that ghosts don't exist. Only after this encounter is when I first started thinking ghosts could be real. So when I went on a school trip, I was in a room with about 5 friends and we got pretty drunk with some other people. When we went to sleep, a friend of mine who was brushing her teeth saw a woman in another building in front of a window just staring at us. I could literally feel her gaze on me. We all gathered up in front of the window and just waved at her. She waved back. At first I thought nothing of it. Went to relax about an hour later. I had a quick peek out the window. She was still staring. This really creeped me out, so I called my friends again. We began shouting at her to fuck off, but she wouldn't move. My friend started to dance or something, and the woman copied. I thought it was just a girl messing with us or something. She had black hair really long in front of her face and like weirdly long arms. We went to sleep, but me and my friend couldn't really sleep, so I just looked out the window again and saw that she was gone. I looked for about a minute and saw her walk across the window with her hair floating. I know it sounds dumb, but it's what I saw. I later took a look again, and she wasn't there. But then I saw a hand come around the corner, and then her head peeked around the curtain. This seriously scared me to death. I just went to bed after that and never saw her again, or just any people in the building. I also have a picture of her, but it's kind of blurry. Has someone else had an experience like this? Please share in the comments section. When I, a 20-year-old female, was around 11 or 12, I would hang out at a park across the street from my house with my friends. It's not a super popular park or anything, more just the neighbor side streets nearby, but it's a proper playground. A friend and I were there more towards the evening, maybe around 4 or 5 p.m., sitting at the top of the playground, looking up at the sky. We hear someone walking on the path nearby and turn to look. There's a decent height, thin dude in a hoodie walking our way. Mind you, we're now the only 3 people in the park. We stay where we are because we figure, the guy must be walking the path through the park, past the playground and out the other end. Nope. The guy comes off the path and starts walking across the wood chips over to the playground. At that point we get up, kind of chuckle and just shift around nervously. He slowly starts climbing the stairs, dead-ass eye contact the entire time. This is where we were really nervous. Us being at the top of the playground, we go down the big slide, start walking around the side back to the bottom to see if this guy is actually following us Or maybe it's just some dude wanting the playground. The guy goes up, comes down, walks around the side. No, we took the longest way around, weaved a bit. This guy does the exact same thing. At this point, he seems to be speeding up to catch up to us. My friend and I look at each other, and we just book it out of there. The man starts running after us until he sees we're running to a house, immediately turns around and beelines it out of the park from where he came. This is probably the closest I've ever been to someone potentially trying to kidnap me, or someone with me. Definitely not the only close, creepy encounter I've had as a kid, though. Thank God this park is so close to the houses. My family and I went on a trip to the Hocking Hills area of southern Ohio a few weeks ago. There was a place that I always wanted to visit, the abandoned ghost town Moonville Rail Tunnel. I've never been to this area, so I didn't know what to expect, but I did know it was pretty deep in the woods. We took a trip from our rented cabin using Google for GPS for the location. We started driving and it's, for lack of better words, real impoverished, where we are driving hills have eyes type style. We literally only saw a few cars on the way. We get to a point where we need to enter into a forest, and we are close to a tunnel. There was a sign that said we were entering Bubba Wood. For a little additional information, I drive a Mercedes that I am just lucky enough to have, and have my husband in the car, a black man with dreadlocks, my 10-year-old nonverbal autistic son, and my 6-year-old daughter. We drive down this really creepy stone road into the forest, and there's nothing back there. No houses, no cars, nobody. We see signs that we are close and pull into the parking lot. We walk over the footbridge and make our way towards the tunnel, which is a lot larger than I had expected. We hear this sound coming from the other side of the tunnel that goes into the woods and away from the parking lot. A truck comes driving through the tunnel towards us while we were on foot. He gets out of his truck with a chainsaw, and it's a white guy in his 60s. He walks with my entire family everywhere we go and through the tunnel. I tried to make small talk with him and pull some info out about if he worked for the Department of Natural Resources. He really wasn't budging. We turn around to walk out of the tunnel, and he starts using a chainsaw behind us. The sound is just echoing through this tunnel. At this point, we have no cell phone service, and literally no one knows my family is out there except us. I was already worried my car was sending the wrong idea to people like we have money or something. We don't. We rush to the car to get the kids in their booster seats, and this motherfucker comes driving over the footbridge in his truck towards us in the parking lot. I honestly don't know how this truck fit on it. He stops again and gets out of the truck and starts walking the other direction, much to our relief. About this time, I notice there are some dusty handprints on my car. I asked my husband if they were his, and we compared his hands and my son's, and they were not a match. I don't know who could have touched the car, because we were there with the chainsaw man the entire time. Just a few minutes later, I look in my rearview mirror. There was a bunch of dust kicked up behind us, and there he is. He had to have driven pretty fast on that stone road to catch up that quickly. There is nowhere to go in these woods. The road is basically one lane, and we have no cell service or GPS. Every time I think we lose him, he's there again. I'm waiting for my tires to get popped or something, or for this guy to ram me off the road into a ravine. Finally, we get out of the woods and I turn out, and he's still following. We were following printed directions to get back, and I ended up making a wrong turn in the excitement. The guy in the truck was finally gone, and I turned around to go back past the stone road that goes deeper into the forest. There was one lone house near this road, and there is his truck. He had to have seen us drive onto this road into the woods and taken some back way to the tunnel. I don't know if he was just trying to protect the site from more graffiti or what, but he really creeped us out. It was like a very scary movie trope rolled into one single event. Thank you guys for watching and listening to the very end. Sorry for my absence, my personal life has been a bit fucked up the past month and a half. So, the videos will be coming again at least 3 to 4 days a week. Make sure your notifications are on, and if you want your story featured on an upcoming video, email it to thesinfulsavant@gmail.com. I'll leave a link to the email in the description box below as well. And until we meet again, you guys know what to do. Stay sinful.
When I met my ex-husband Kenny, he was from a small town outside of the city. They are what you would call country folks, I guess. The whole family lived on a 1-mile area, and everyone had a plot of land that they built homes on. There were 10 acres each, so when we were married, we got our land on and built a beautiful house on it. My mother-in-law was married to a strange guy, from what I could see. He didn't like to come to family functions and seemed to hate everyone, but he did have a friend named Denny. And when I met Denny, every spidey sense that I had just went off. I did not like this guy, and I think that he could tell that too. He would go on and on about how much money he had, and since he didn't have any family, he was going to leave it to them. He was at their house every day pretty much, except when he would go on these business trips, and no one would hear from him for like weeks at a time. Then he would come back with all of this money and would buy everyone very expensive gifts. Now one day, my ex says that Denny has cancer. And well, of course, I felt bad about disliking him, but still didn't want to be around him or anything. The next thing I know, they have Denny moved in and has a hospital bed set up in the office. Which was really strange, but Marilyn, my ex-mother-in-law, said that they needed to take care of him, and in return, his life insurance policy of $1 million would go to them. Still, I didn't trust him, so one night I asked some questions. A lot of questions, in fact. Back then, the internet wasn't a big thing and very few cell phones were around. He had answers to every question, but I didn't believe him. So, to win me over, he took Marilyn and I to the cancer ward with him for the treatment. We went into the waiting room and he walked up the stairs. About an hour later, he walks out. He even had some documents talking about his diagnosis. Still, something just wasn't right. He took us to his mother's house. He told us that she died and left the house to him, and no one was supposed to live there, but I saw milk on the counter. Yeah, I'm pretty nosy. He had hundreds of Beanie Babies all over the house too, and gave us a bag full each. This is when they were really expensive too. Still though, I just didn't like the guy. One day he pops up and says that he has to go to Boston for business and wants Gary, my ex's stepfather, to go with him. We didn't think anything about it, so off they go. A couple of days later, Gary calls Marilyn and says that he wants her to come to Boston to sign some papers or something. This all seemed really weird to me, so I decided that I was going to look into Denny. I went to his mother's house and she was home. And apparently, she wasn't dead. She told me that he had escaped from the mental hospital and that they'd been looking for this guy for months. And apparently, this is when he was gone for like weeks at a time. Allegedly, what was happening was that he would go to hospital and then would leave again. Apparently, he wasn't rich either, and he doesn't have cancer. All this had been just an elaborate scheme, I guess, but why? I begged Marilyn not to go to Boston. I had this feeling of dread, but she said that she was going to confront him. A day later, she gets a credit card bill in the mail and her name maxed out. She went to the bank and found out that there were several loans and credit cards taken out in her name. This is where he was getting the money from for the trips and the gifts. They also did a check and she had $1 million life insurance policy on her name. Then, Kenny's younger sister comes to us and says that she woke up in the middle of the night and saw Danny and Gary in the backyard. apparently getting it on and didn't say anything because she thought that it had just been a dream. So, they were in on it together by the looks of things. And what we were thinking is they tried to get Marilyn to Boston to be killed. She acted like nothing happened when Gary called, and she said that she couldn't get off work and they came home to the police waiting on them. Gary denied everything and acted shocked, and she let him back home. He knew that I was the one who stopped his plan too, and after that, he hated me with a passion. And I guess it just goes to show that no matter how much proof, you always have to trust your gut. Oh, and I talked to my ex-sister-in-law, and Danny, he's now in jail for murder. Because he murdered his lover's wife. So as far as I'm concerned, this was a close call for sure. This happened in South Carolina, and it's one of the worst experiences of my entire life, and I hadn't thought about it for a long time. Someone said that I should write a book of all the horrible things that have happened in my life, because it should be more than a person can handle, but anyway, I was dating a guy for a couple of weeks, and we went to one of his friend's house in the middle of nowhere. It was a sort of run-down older mobile home, but who am I to judge? We went in and there were 4 other guys there. I thought that was a bit odd. I was the only girl, but just shrugged it off. They wanted to play a drinking game, and back then I was a little wild, so I was game. And after about an hour, things got really weird. I could see them looking at each other like there was an inside joke. I decided to get up and go to the bathroom, and when I came out, someone pushed me in a bedroom and locked the door. It was completely dark in there. I banged on the door telling them that this wasn't funny. The door opened and they all came in and shut the door behind them. I could sort of feel them grabbing at me and laughing. I was fighting and hitting, but they were just way too strong. The door opened and they all left. I could then hear them outside in the hall, and it didn't sound good. They were discussing the order that they would take turns on with me. The door opens and my mind is going a million miles a minute on how I'm going to survive this. The guy comes in and sat on the bed and said that he was going to get me out of there. He said that they went too far and he didn't know that they were going to hurt me. He said that he thought that it was a joke and that there was a back door across from the bedroom, and he said for me to run through the woods as fast as I could to the road and he would come and find me. I ran as fast as I could and I heard them yelling for me to come back. I could hear them coming too. I got to the road and hid behind a tree. It seemed like maybe an hour had passed, and I see a car pull up with him in it, and he is just all bloody from head to toe. They had beat the ever-living daylights out of this guy for letting me go. He had my purse and ended up taking me home, and I didn't know if I should trust him, but really I had no other choice. I mean, I was in the middle of the woods. I heard a couple of months later that apparently that same guy was arrested for killing his girlfriend, and the guy who took me there was arrested for assault of another woman. Maybe if I'd gone to the police, this may have never happened. Who knows? But what I can say for sure is that I got really, really lucky that day. So about 10 years ago, I'm a cocky little thing. 18-year-old dude who thinks he has the world by the balls. The world had me by the balls, I later discovered though. And I was with my very serious girlfriend of 2 years and counting. It was the first time that I'd ever dated a girl, and it really felt like I was in love and could see myself marrying this girl, in fact. Thank God that didn't happen though. That's a whole nother story. But my parents are really strict conservative Christians. They'd never let me and my girlfriend Caitlin share a room at night. Caitlin's parents didn't really care at all, but they let us drink and we had our own bedroom upstairs. Looking back, her mum was kind of not the best mother, but she was nice enough, so yeah, she was alright. Anyway, One weekend in summer, Caitlin and her parents asked if I would like to come up for 3 hours up north to her grandparents' town for their anniversary. This place is hours away from civilization, pretty much as secluded as it gets, in fact. You even see some Amish people the whole way up there, northern Michigan if anyone would like to know. So I said, yeah, okay. Her grandparents are pretty wealthy and fun, and I knew that it was going to be a fun time. But too many people stayed in their really big, lovely house, so we had to rent a cabin in the woods. This cabin is at least 20 minutes from the village or town or whatever, and right away it just seemed a bit off. It was back in the woods off this sort of creepy, secluded and quiet dirt road. Everything was completely silent. The house next to us was dead silent and empty, and it was just us there. I'm not too worried about it at all because I have this wonderful and fleeting confidence that alcohol and the possibility of getting some action this weekend is on the menu. So I'll skip the daytime activities as they don't really matter all that much here. We basically just had a regular fun time with the family and we returned to our cabin for the night. Now, our room was upstairs in this sort of loft area. This cabin was oldish and rustic and just, well, empty for a lack of a better term. Not physically empty, but just void of something. The kind of emptiness that you can almost feel, but hey, we're out in the woods and no one has probably been here like in ages. So, of course it feels kind of dead in here, right? That night, though, was when it happened. And I'm positive that I'll miss a bunch of details as I sort of blocked out the memory as best as I could until, well, I saw this place and it came back. So, I'm sleeping in this really awful mattress next to Caitlin and I drift off and have the most horrible nightmares. They weren't dreams, though. It was sort of real. It was as though my soul was able to move around and even interact with the bedroom. And I could even see our bodies were lying fast asleep there. But I was sort of awake. My body was asleep, but I was somehow completely mobile without a body. It was a weird dream, and to be honest, I thought that that's all it was. The bedroom was dark, and the moonlight from the window lit up the center of the room. There were so many people there, all deceased, standing in a circle, sort of chanting. In the center of their circle, I see a little girl with blonde hair, maybe 7 years old, and she's in this white dress, almost glowing too in the most disturbing way. The people turn to me as they notice that I'm watching and am aware of the fact that I'm there. They slowly approach me, all chanting and murmuring. I can't remember the words exactly, but I'm positive that they were performing some sort of a ritual or sacrifice to kill this girl. It was like the scene from Rosemary's Baby, something that I never saw till very recently, but that's the best way to describe it. Anyway, they came to me with their hands outstretched, looking dead and sort of rotten, and as they begin to strangle me, I wake up. And waking up is usually when everything goes back to normal, right? But I wake up and see the rocking chair is rocking, like flying as if someone had slammed into it. At this point, I'm just like, nope, and I close my eyes and I just pray and hope the sun will rise soon. It didn't, though, and unfortunately, at some point, I fell back to sleep. The next dream goes like this. I'm on a roller coaster with all sorts of people, and it's going straight to the sky up into heaven. I'm happy and stoked and cheering, and right before we get to the pearly gates, the roller coaster goes down, straight down, into the earth and into the fire and into hell. And all I can hear is blood-curdling screams for help and screams of murder. So much agony and terror. It was honestly one of the most awful things that I've ever experienced, and I could feel the burning of the fire and the pain of the screams just surrounding me in every way. Finally, though, I wake up and the sun is up. I'm covered in sweat, and I look over to see my girlfriend in the fetal position, shaking and crying. I ask her what's wrong, knowing that I think I already know the answer, hoping that it was something else. And all she could say was, the girl, over and over again. I asked her what happened, and she said that she saw a little girl in a white dress standing in the middle of the room staring at us and dancing, and she claimed that she wasn't even asleep. She went on to explain too how she had waken up periodically to see the rocking chair just rocking back and forth like I had. Mind you, I hadn't said a word about everything that I had experienced yet, and she pretty much confirmed everything, which obviously only made everything so much worse. I don't really have an exciting end to this story too. You see, the next night and the night after that, I just didn't sleep. There was a Porn Stars marathon on TV, thank God, and I stayed up all night with the lights blasting from that to stay awake. I didn't sleep again, in fact, until the car ride home. Caitlin and I talked about it, I think maybe once or twice after that, and then we just never spoke of it again. I guess that I'll never really know what actually happened that night, or if I was just going crazy or something. All I can say for sure is that I'm never going anywhere near that town again. As much as I would like answers, I would rather just forget about, well, all of this.